Handmade After Dark. Welcome to my weekly online class to go, and this week's class features the Charming Day suite. And I will just switch my camera around so I can show you the projects. So these are the three projects for this week. And so for those who aren't familiar with the online class, so if you're in Australia and you spend $75 or more before shipping and after any Stamp and Rewards redemption by the end of Saturday, I will send you the kit to make two each of the three different designs for this week's class. So you will need the stamp set and the dies, but I'll send you all the cardstock, DSP, any die cuts or punches that are not part of the bundle, so things like the stylish shapes and the circles and that sort of stuff. And I will get those out to you. So this is the Charming Day suite. So this one is a cling stamp set, and then the dies, you get quite a lot of dies with this one. So you've got dies to cut out the large and small flowers and leaves, and then some other shapes that aren't part of the actual stamp set themselves. And then the paper, and I have to say I do love this paper. Probably helps that there's lots of purple in it, particularly Blackberry Bliss. And I don't normally sort of show all the papers in a class, but I do really like this one. So you've got your sort of, your busier floral, and then you've got background images, or background papers, I should say, not so much images, but you've got, quite a variety of styles and colors. So there's a bit of Timid Tiger in there, Pretty Peacock. The Pretty Peacock and Blackberry Bliss go really well together. I really like it. So I'm certainly loving this paper pack. I'm not very good at flicking through this in a live video, as you can probably tell, but I do think this one definitely needs to be highlighted because it is gorgeous. All right, let's get started. So we'll start with this one. So I'll put these over here. So Blackberry Bliss card base, and then for those who get the kits, you'll get some basic white for your insert, some Mossy Meadow, some of the Designer Series paper, Stylish Shapes die cut for the sentiment, and then Blackberry Bliss and basic white for the images. So these are from the Meant to Be die set, which is currently on the last chance list, which is disappointing because the hexagons are really useful. So we'll do the stamping first, and just give me a sec. Okay, yep, just needed to check a couple of things, but all looks good. Alrighty, so the flower we are going to stamp just in Memento Black, and the sentiment we will do in a sec. And I'll just make sure it's actually inked up. I keep forgetting to re-ink my Memento. That looks fine. And just work out roughly where I want it to go. that out of the way before I end up with everything covered in ink. So we'll colour that in a sec. Hi Jane, good to see you. I sent your kits out this afternoon. If I forget to send you the PDF, please remind me. I can see myself forgetting with everything I've got to get done at the moment. I have about 10 reminders all over the place to send everyone their PDFs. Hopefully that's enough to actually remember. So, Blackberry Bliss for the sentiment. And I'll just check that that's... I always forget to re-ink my stamp pads until I go to use them next, usually in a live, and then realize, oh, I need to re-ink. And then I forget until the next time. One day I'll remember. All right, we will put that to the side for the moment and move that. So we'll color this one in. Nothing fancy with the coloring. I'm just using the Stampin' Blends and trying not to drop everything all over the place. And all right, so is that my, no, that is Old Olive. I did not want Old Olive. Mossy Meadow, that's the one I wanted, but I wanted my dark one as well. I have my spare up here, all good. All right, so Mossy Meadow, Blackberry Bliss, and Darling Duckling, or you could use Daffodil Delight. Can't think of names at the moment, so I'm going to start with the light and nothing fancy, just start with the light, add some dark, and then go over it with a little bit more light, and try and stay in between the lines as much as possible. All right, so I'll add a little bit of dark. So you don't have to be too exact with these, because flower buds or petals are never exact, they're never even, so just put the right lid on the right colour and start with the light for the leaves. And don't worry, the one on the next card, which is much bigger, I have already coloured that one, at least I'm pretty sure I have, so you don't have to sit and watch me colour all of that. Just this one. All right, add a little bit of dark. And I'm just going to bring in my colour lifter because I went out a little bit. It will look better once it dries more, so don't worry too much. It should dry. Wrong end. It should dry properly and it will look better than it currently does. I'm just using the light for the center. You can always just go over it a bit more for the center. You can always just go over it a bit more. And I'm just gonna just add a touch more. So once that dries, you won't be able to see all of that. So that will be fine. I will just put that to the side for the moment, give it a chance to dry just in case. Alrighty, let's stick this together. I need to make sure I remember to add the ribbon. I think, yes, you can probably see on this one, I did what I often do. I stuck the Mossy Meadow down, forgot that I needed to add the ribbon, so I just added it around the paper, but we'll do it properly this time. Where's my silicone mat? Okay. So once that is done, we will just, don't need all this ribbon, just enough to wrap around. And where's my tear and tape? There it is. This is just the right width for this ribbon, so you need to be, well, careful-ish. You can always adjust or tuck the adhesive under if you don't get it quite right. And usually pretty forgiving if you need to adjust, and if it happens to be a part that is going to be under the sentiment label, it will be fine. So just straighten that one up, that's all good. Yep, that is not, nope, that's not working. Well, it'll work. It'll still work. Just not as even as I wanted, but it works, it's fine. No one's going to see the back. And that little bit is going to be covered. So it's all good. Okay. Far too much glue as always, but that's fine. Alrighty, now let's just check. This one, it's just about. And I'm going to add a little bit more. the other trick, if it still doesn't quite look right, and sometimes you do need to add more than you think of the the color lifter. So sometimes you do need to go back with a bit more, just to get it, or to get as much up as you can, and then it'll, just give it time, let it dry, and then check how it is. I'll leave it just for a sec before I stick it down. The other thing you can do, if it still doesn't quite look right, just cover that bit with embellishments. Seriously, I have done that many times. Now, where it is staring me in the face, no doubt. Where is my sentiment label gone? There it is. So let's put this one down, and I'm going to put the dimensionals on so they're either side of the ribbon, just because they will stick better on the paper than on the ribbon. And add these backings to the large pile of backings and scraps of paper that is on the floor behind me. It's a good thing you can't see the floor. And this one doesn't want to come off. Come on. Off. There we go. Finally. Alrighty. So that is down. And then that should be fine. Once it's dry, I will add an embellishment there anyway, just to hide it a little bit, but it's not fully dry, so it will still dry a bit more. But if you're ever in doubt, just give it a bit more time, put it aside, keep going with the rest of your project. And then come back and check. And I probably could go back with a tiny bit more there, but I'm just going to put an embellishment there. So that will be fine. Alrighty, so I just stick this one down in the middle. Yep. Keep it in the middle, not. Oh, come on. Decided to slide around a little more than I want. But at least with the glue, you can move it back. If you're quick. Still got to be fairly quick, but definitely have more time than you do with something like the Stampin' Seal. And put that one down, and of course you can always decorate the inside as well if you want to. And where are my embellishments? Here they are. So I'm using these ones, which are the Charming Shimmer Faceted Dots. So this is part of the same suite. And now you probably can't see all that well some of the ones on the original card. So I'm going to take big fat chunky one and hide some of that. And then the other ones I've just put in the center of some of the flowers. So it's up to you how many you go with, and just also depends on where the flowers sit on your card. Just having a look at the original one. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it was 5 in total. Now I need one more. What do you reckon? I'm running out. Could go down there or over there. Let's go down the bottom. And get that out of the way for the moment. Alright, so that is the first one. And we'll put that to the side. The second one, let me bring this one back in. So this is a fun fold. So this is really easy fun fold. It's just the Z fold. So really easy. Now did I? No, I haven't. All right. Now I've got a regular card base which I have scored. Now with this one, basically, you just want to score halfway on your card front. Now, if you're in Australia, when we have the A4 cardstock, it's 10.5 centimeters wide. So trying to do halfway is 5.25. It's a little bit like with when you're cutting A4 in half, it's actually 14.85, which is not the easiest thing to try and cut. But what I have found, and I'm going to flip it over so that it's so that you've got a mountain and a valley fold. So 5.25, if actually let me zoom in and so we can get, let's see how close I can get. I've got to keep moving back. All right, that's as close as I can get. So hopefully that's in focus-ish. But so 5.25. If you see, so you got the 2-inch mark just after the 5. That first line for the inch measurements, the first line after the 2, which is 2 1/16. No, sorry. Actually, yes, it is, because it's, let me just, my eyesight's not 1, 2, no, it's no, it is. That very first line after the 2, that is as close to a marker for 5.25 as you're going to find. So that's 5.2 there. If you come across to that first line after the 2, which yes is 2 1/16, that is what you want to use anytime you need to score your card front in half, or the back, go with that one, because that is the easiest way to be able to do it. So we'll just fold that, and I will fold this, and I will zoom back out before I forget, so that you can see a bit more. All right, so for this kit, so yes, I have coloured this one, so you don't have to sit and watch me colour all of that. For the colouring for this one, Mossy Meadow again for the leaves, and then Fresh Freesia for the flower. And oh, I pre-stamped that. That was just in Memento Black, the Happy Birthday. I do need to ink around the edges on that. I've embossed the basic white with the pressed flowers embossing folder. So if you're getting the kits, you will get the embossed piece. Fresh Freesia cardstock, die cut with the postage, the perennial postage dies, and then the DSP and piece for the inside, so that sits there. So let's stick all the paper down, and I will just, before I stick, I will just make sure I did get the right sizes. I am going to use the liquid glue for these ones. Well, not for the big one. The big one should be fine. I do like to use it for the smaller pieces, just because those ones, and particularly as I've folded the cardstock, I just find it easier, but that's just me. No reason you can't use Stampin' Seal on the small pieces as well. I just need to make sure I have them the right way up. Now I can't remember, did I cut these? I think, oh yes they are. I did actually cut these ones from the same width, so they do all line up. So if you have, if you're cutting these yourself and you're you know, using a you're going sort of across, just remember which piece goes where, so that you can have them all line up. But of course you can always switch up the papers. You don't have to use the same pattern for all three pieces. You can always switch one or both of them and go with something a little different. Okay, last one. And so for anyone who's never done one of these Z folds before and is looking at this wondering why I'm putting all the DSP on the same side, it is the way it is meant to go, because you've folded that out. So don't make the mistake of, you know, sticking the smaller pieces on the other side or one on either side. It technically all is on the inside, but then when you fold it, it's on the outside. All right, let's now your inside piece of basic white, if you center it, you should be fine. Basically, we just want to make sure that when the card is closed, and so this is the large piece and that is over the top, that it will cover all of the white. And of course, if you need to, you can always adjust the exact placement of this piece. If you've made a mistake, that's absolutely fine. But if you center it, you should, or as close to centered as you can get, then you should be fine, in theory. Theory and practice are not always the same. Okay, so I'm going to stick that down and just quickly double check. Yep, that looks fine. So press that down a bit more. And then, so this one just sits in the middle there. Just slide that across a little bit. That's fine. All right. Now, before we stick all that down, I'm just going to ink this up before I forget. There's my smudge dauber. So I'm just inking this up, just the edges, with a little bit of Mossy Meadow. So you don't need a lot. I just wanted a little bit, just because the plain white just looked, to me, it was just a little bit too stark. It just needed something to take the sharpness of the white away, but I didn't want to use something like basic beige because it just didn't quite look right, and I didn't want to go too much bigger and put a big layer behind, so I just inked up the edges, which is always a good option if you have, say, a sentiment banner and you either don't have an option for, you know, another layer that, you know, actually works, or you just don't have what you need, or it's just an odd shape that trying to do an extra layer, just, it's way too complicated. Inking up the edge is a good alternative. So I'll move that out of the way, get that out of the way before I drop it and end up with ink everywhere. Put that over there for the moment. Now, we will stick this down first, so just remember that you only want to put adhesive on the side that is going to be stuck down. You don't want to cover the entire thing with adhesive. And one thing I like to do, just to make it a bit easier, is I flip it over in place where I want it to sit, which I think is about there, and then that gives me an idea of how far to go with the adhesive. That way you don't, as long as you don't go too close to the edge, and having said that, I probably did go a little bit too close to the edge there, but it gives you an idea of where you want to go and helps avoid thinking, oh yeah, a little bit more, and then, oh, whoops, too far. And I just spread this bit out back towards the rest of it, just so that when I press it down, it's not going to smush out too much. So I'm not adding any more at the moment, I'm just spreading out what's already there. All right, let's see how we go. I will actually, just in case, one other thing you can do, just in case, is if you put your silicone mat down that way, and just make sure you still know where you need it to be placed, but if you do happen to go too far over, you can press some of that excess onto your silicone mat, and then your cardstock won't stick to the rest of your card, and it will also take some of that adhesive off. So let's flip that over, that looks good, take that out, that's covered that nicely. Now, with the flower, because we've coloured in blends, you can see through, of course. So depending on whether it bothers you or not, you may want to, if you don't want, so in the original one, you can see a tiny bit of the blends coming through. I'm not too fussed about that, but if that is something that bothers you, you may just want to adjust where you place it to minimize that, so that it's, you've got it sort of as much covered by the cardstock to minimize what shows through. But if you're not bothered, then don't worry about it. I'm just going to go down towards the bottom, probably cross it a little bit, but and where did I put? No, they're my little ones. There they are. I got them out and then I put them away. And also, just as I say that, just consider, just take that one off, because I want to think about where I actually need the dimensionals, because if you're going to have bits overhanging the edge, you don't need to go all the way to the edge. And I forget pretty much every time. Less of an issue for the top part, because that's all going to be on the cardstock, but so what do you reckon? Another one over there. And probably don't need that one there. Just rearrange them slightly and add to the pile on the floor. Need to bring the vacuum up here and clean up the mess on the floor. And that's all of them. So I'm going to go reasonably close. Keep, I don't want too much overhanging the edge, but yeah, a little bit's fine. And then we'll add some to our sentiment, if it will stop sticking to my fingers, probably because I've got glue on my fingers, so it then all sticks. Alrighty. This one is just going up the top. And then this one I use, where are they? The rainbow adhesive dots for this one. So I used a mix of the Fresh Freesia and the they're not Timid Tiger, they're the peach one. It's the peach one. You know what I mean, peach one. So I'm going to add some of the little ones, some of the big ones. And then add some just in. I'm going to stick to this side for the embellishments, and I haven't got, and it really depends if you're going with adding them to the flower centers. It depends on, you know, which ones are actually there. So I've just got the 2 because that's all there's really room for. That is fine. So that is card number 2 done. All right, on to the last one. This one is another Blackberry Bliss base. So bring this one back in. So kits for this one include the DSP, a couple of bits of DSP, some basic white for the insert, Blackberry Bliss, and Stylish Shapes dyed. Now this is intentionally a very, very fine border, so when you are adhering this, I would, unless you are very, very good at getting really good placement, I do recommend the green glue so you can adjust it if you need to, because it's very slight border. And then so you'll need as you need the dyes for this, you'll get the basic white, and so this is one of the dyes from the set, and we're going to do just some basic ink blending on this one. So let's do that now, and hopefully I don't make a complete mess of everything. Now, there are my blends, they're hiding, because I got those out earlier, and then I'm just going to grab this and this. So for the flower, we are using Blackberry Bliss and Pretty Peacock. You want to be gentle with this, just because, you know, it's a die cut. It's, you know, it is, especially the stem, it is rather delicate. If you wanted to, you could just do some ink blending on a piece of cardstock and then die cut, and that way you can adjust the dyes to make sure you've got the right colors where you want them. So that is definitely an option, and then you don't have to worry as much about being, you know, super careful. So we will start with the flower. and you could also use sponge dauber for this as well. So I'm just going to be as gentle as I can, just because it's very easy to unintentionally tear or pull the cardstock. And having said that, I'm actually just going to tape that down just so it doesn't move so much. And then, and this is super lazy masking, I'm just going to grab got some old scraps of cardstock here, and I'm just going to slide that under there just so that I can try and get all of the flower without getting the purple, the Blackberry Bliss on the leaves. And then I'll do the same sort of thing in the other direction. So this is very lazy masking. And so you can go as much or as little colour as you want for this. Just be mindful of if you're unintentionally pulling on the cardstock, because it is quite, the stem is quite thin, so it can be a little on the fragile side. So I do recommend also holding as much of it down as you can. Easier said than done. Just gonna try and get a bit more right on the edge there. All right, I think that will do for that one. And then just carefully peel that off. So this is just a bit of removable tape. And then I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to cover that just so that I don't go over that part, or at least try not to. Hi Renee, nice to see you. Apologies if you put that comment in ages ago and I've only just seen it. I do forget to look up sometimes. All right, so you do want to be, particularly with this bottom section, you do need to be even more careful than the flower, because it moves, it's pretty fragile, especially some of these little bits. So rather than the sort of traditional circular motions, I would do more of a sort of single direction strokes as much as possible, or even dabbing. And so this is where a sponge dauber is also a very useful option for this particular type of blending. And we're not doing anything fancy with the blending. It's really just coloring the the die cut, so you don't have to worry as much about everything looking perfectly blended into each other, because it's not that kind of ink blending. Just remember, if you are holding down the cardstock and you're holding it down over an inked area, you will probably pick up some ink on your fingers, which is fine. Just be careful where you then put your hands, because if you then put it on a different part, say like on the flower, you may end up with colours that you weren't intending on the flower, or you may find it actually looks really, really good. But just be mindful of any ink that ends up on your fingers. And I'm going to come in this direction just to try and get right in up at the top, and then we shall check to see if we need any extra at the very, very top. So let's peel these back. Yes, we do need a tiny bit more, so I'm going to angle. I'm actually just going to, like I said, this is super, super lazy masking. And a sponge dauber would be much more effective and easier for this, like for this top section, but hey, we'll make it work. Just needs a tiny, tiny bit more. Come on. Alright, that'll do. There is a very slight line, but it'll be fine, I think. Or we can just do this. I don't know if you can. Probably going to end up with bits of ink where I don't want it, but there we go. That'll do. Otherwise, we'll be here all night while I keep trying to get it just right, because it will never be just right, and you'll get very bored, and I don't blame you. All right, that one's done. Let's start putting this together. So, and I need to remember, we need to stamp sentiment. Let's do that quickly, and I used Pretty Peacock for this one. Oh, that needs a bit of that's starting to leak a bit. Now I need to make sure I clean this first, because I haven't done that yet. And my Pretty Peacock is super, super juicy, so I'm just going to check that it's not overly inked up. Need to give that one a clean later. And I'll clean that one now, and that one while I remember. I was about to say while I forget. obviously I didn't, I just did it. Okay, let's put that to the side. We'll give that a little bit of time to dry. So this Pretty Peacock is it's a textured, one of the Textured Notes dies, and we will add that into the center. And I need to remember to add the baker's twine before I stick it down on the card front. Okay. Now I may as well add side. I kept thinking I was putting this one down. I'm putting this one down. So definitely using green glue for this one because it's a very thin border. That looks pretty good. And I may as well, while I've got the green glue out, we would add this one. Just remember, this is also a super fine border. So I do want to be able to just adjust. There we go. All right. Now, my favorite baker's twine. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do like baker's twine. I'm just not very good at tying it around things. Now, which way? This way. So we're just going to tie it round, or wrap it round twice and tie a bow. That's going to be a little bit too short. And now once I get it roughly in place, and straight is helpful. Once that's about where we want it, I'm going to flip it over so we can tape it down. Just makes it a bit easier. Some people are really good at just being able to wrap it around, tie it straight away, no issues. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. Definitely not. And I'm going to get a glue dot out as well. So that is going to sit about there. Stick a glue dot underneath there. And then trim that off. Hopefully that's enough. Just be careful that you don't do what I'm currently doing and pulling it a bit too far, and then it creates little dents in your cardstock. Alrighty, that's just about done. Okay, and then what we need to do, I'll just shorten these a little. But what we need to do, once I fix up the mess I'm making, a bit too much adhesive on my scissors. So now what we need to do is we want to stick that down in there. So probably let's just bring card front comes back in. That's going to sit up there. So we want the flower back there. So we want to stick that down and but get it behind there. So I'm just adding a super fine, just want a little bit. You want enough so that it's going to stick, of course, but also because of the way the die cut is with all the little bits of texture, you don't want too much because it'll come through those little markings. So just a small amount, keep it thin. It's fine to sort of have it on, you know, a large portion of the die cut, just keep the amount fairly thin with this one. So I'm going to slide that under, and I'm fine for, let's just make sure this is actually straight. I'm fine with the leaf sticking out over the edge a tiny bit because there's plenty of room for that. That's absolutely fine. Alrighty. Nope. No, I don't want to throw that away. I just want it slightly out of the way. Alright. Let's stick this one down and we are almost done. And yeah, I'm gonna pretty much always take the backing off. May as well, it's double-sided tape, may as well get use out of both sides. So this one is just gonna go in the middle. Press that down. We will pop the sentiment up on dimensionals. Just be mindful that you've already got a very slightly raised surface there, so you want the dimensionals more over that side. So I'm going to, although having said that, it's not quite high enough. Ignore what I just said. It's not quite high enough to just do them on the one side and adhesive on the other. But when you do have, if that was popped up on dimensionals, then you would absolutely just want them on one side. Sometimes if you've got sort of thick ribbon underneath that makes the layer pop up a bit more than it normally would, then you may want to consider using dimensionals just on one side, but fine for this one. And that was a little higher than I intended, but that's fine. Doesn't have to be identical. All right, nearly done. Let's just my desk. I usually clean my desk, or at least tidy it, before I start my lives each week, and it's usually vaguely organized and tidy-ish, but by the end of it, it's a mess. Stuff goes everywhere. Okay. And we'll just fold that, and then I am using the same gems that I used on the first card, so the shimmer faceted dots. So I'm using a couple of the big ones and a few of the small ones. Alrighty, that is card number 3 done. Let me bring the others back in. Where's that one hiding? So that was the first one. Alrighty, so there we have it. These are the 3 cards from this week's online class to go. Ordering period is open until Saturday night for this week's class, and next week is the Darling Dinos bundle. I'll just switch my camera back now. There we go. Alright, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the cards. Have a great week, and I will